I don't think that that's sensible either. But again, I'm Dave Sim. Everybody disagrees with everything that I have to say. Okay, we're going to move on to Jeff Seiler, and I have a question from last time when I had Rolly email you Jeff's audio question. Were you able to put that in?
Yes. That was actually really amazing. I could put it in to the podcast where it's all audio real easily. For the video, I spliced the video where, okay, now we're going to do Jeff's question. Put in Jeff's question, and then I'm like, screw it, and I just put the rest of the video where you read his question, because I can.
Okay, all right. Because he was asking about this time, you will get the question. And he was saying he's going to leave it as a phone message because it's kind of a dicey area in terms of.
Hi, Dave. It's Jeff. I already posted up one question at AMOC for this month, but I decided not to post my second question because of its somewhat delicate nature. In case you decided not to venture down that road with this particular question, therefore it won't be posted at AMOC. So the question goes. On a few occasions in Cerebus, he drew a tent into which he would enter and sleep. Early on, when he was still a merc, he would do so by himself, and then occasionally, I believe, again from time to time. The last times that I remember was when Cerebus and Jaka were going home. In each case, as I remember, the entrance to the tent was drawn in such a way that it was vaguely familiar. Did you intentionally draw that to resemble a particular female body part's entrance? And if so, in going home, I can understand why. But way back when in Cerebus Volume 1, was that still the intention? Or was that originally the intention? That Cerebus was entering into a place that would always or eventually undermine his, and I have it in quotations, power. So there's a question for you to ponder and make the executive decision about whether or not, as I say, you want to go down that road. Okay, hope you're doing well. I'm doing okay. I kind of got the sniffles. Hopefully it's just, beginning or end of a cold. Hopefully not something drastic and deadly. So take care, and I will look forward to your answers on Saturday. Hope you're doing well, and keep on being productive. Okay, bye-bye.
End of message.
In Cerebus, he had just proofread Form and Void, and obviously I had just read Form and Void, checking his corrections. 37 of Jeff's corrections survived into the final mix and are now on their way to Sean Robinson, along with virtually all of Aardvark Vanaheim's Spawn 10 money, which must be starting to prey on Sean, because Rolly keeps checking, and Rolly told me today it's still in Chicago. It's been in Chicago for a week now, so I don't know what the situation with that. Maybe Form and Void is a Democrat graphic novel, so it got to Chicago, and it has no idea that San Diego isn't Chicago, or it does know, and it's going, I don't really want to see Chicago. Well, you have to. There's a check in with you that's supposed to go to Sean Robinson. So we will see when this eventually gets to Sean. At least it's still showing up on Rolly's radar screen. Anyway, the symbolism was the opening in the tent when Cerebus and Jaka are having sex, and I do the close-up, pullback of the tent opening, which is vaginal in character. If you're looking at the tent aperture, yes, that's definitely what I'm calling people's minds. And Jeff was wondering how intentional that was. Any time in the course of the 6,000 pages that I showed Cerebus in a tent or sticking his head out of a tent, and it's like, well, I wouldn't call it intentional, but it's if you're a visual artist and a graphic novelist, you do have a pretty clear idea of symbolism in terms of, hey, you know what that looks like? So, it's the same as, but I think that's not something that I invented, or that's not something that I did intentionally that isn't there in a different kind of intention. The same as the hot dog, the Frankfurter, the Coney Island hot dog. If you look at the hot dog and you look at it objectively, it's definitely penile and vaginal. If I put a hot dog into a comic strip or a comic book page, I don't think that the culpability is mine. I think it's no, human beings do that, particularly men. When it comes to inventing things, they've usually got penises and vaginas, their penis and interchangeable vaginas on the mind. So that's where you get things like the hot dog or the pop-up toaster. It's like the toaster is definitely vaginal, and the toast is definitely penile, and the fact that it goes chunk and leaps up out of the vaginal toaster. Again, I don't think there's a particular level of culpability there. Well, like you dirty-minded pervert. It's like, well, do we really want to do without toasters just because we know essentially where they come from?
I think it's one of the Naked Gun movies. There's a love scene where Leslie Nielsen and Priscilla Presley, they go into the bedroom, and then it's a series of, stock footage of like a rocket going off and a train going into the tunnel and all that stuff.
Right.
And I think they did that in a couple of them. And then I don't know if it's one of the Naked Gun movies or a different movie where it's the guy and the girl and they go into the bedroom and all the stock footage goes, and then it cuts to them sitting on the end of the bed eating popcorn, and she turns and goes, "Are we just going to watch stock footage all night, or are we going to make love?" And it's because they've done that bit in a number of things of, oh, yep, okay, it's time for the train to go in the tunnel, and whatever it was, I can't even remember what it was, where they did, are we just going to watch stock footage all night? I'm like, that's the perfect send-up, and, it's one of those, it's great as long as you understand what's going on.
Right. Jeff, another question. Actually, he says, first question for Dave this month. Sorry, we did them out of order here, Jeff. We did the second one first. You wrote in following Cerebus number 6 that, quote, aardvarks were a dramatically rare occurrence. Of course, much later on, I realized that this had much in common with prophethood, which likewise occurred spontaneously, and which I see as being a core element of God's overall plan, that the actual nature of individual beings is decided by God alone, that each soul is individual. So Jeff gets to his question, which is, so was Cerebus' life and adventures and misadventures a case of free will, or was it God's, or Tarim's, or your plan? Palnu odds are that your answer is, quote, highest level God's plan, lower level Dave Sims' plan, lowest level Cerebus' free will, unquote. The new Seprin odds, that's a fine question. We'll get to it after lunch. Where's my linguini? I think, I I've been trying to figure out a way to explain how I see free will, and I keep talking about enactments, that we're enacting things that have been enacted before, but we're enacting them in slightly different ways, and everybody finds their own spot in that spectrum. Let me try a different approach to it, which is we're running our programming. Our DNA is running our programming, and our programming is running us. Each human being gets 23 chromosomes from their mother and 23 chromosomes from their father. That's two different programs. And those two programs fuse into the 46 chromosomes that becomes a new program, a bit of the one and a bit of the other, simultaneously. But it is still programming. It's just far more intricate and far more subtle and nuanced than the finest tuned computer programming. And this, in my view, was designed by God. And it's essentially, it's designed to proliferate wherever it arrives, and to ultimately allow God to retrieve data of all of the different possibilities of how that occurs. The 23 chromosomes and the 23 chromosomes making 46, and what allows the, as I did in the last day, what allows the 2 neutrinos out of every 100 neutrinos to escape that duality, that binary trap that starts with helium and hydrogen and incarnates as physical beings and incarnates as the 2 hemispheres of our brain, et cetera, et cetera. The idea being that if God does choose at some point to create a counterpart to God, what sort of a counterpart would God create, and what are the elements that they would have? So, again, it's all it's definitely preordained, because, again, only 2 out of every 100 neutrinos escape and go back to God. And God is able to learn from this barrage of experiences from everywhere in the universe. Here's what happens with that. Here's the best way to do that. Here's the best odds of this happening, and across unimaginable anecdotal examples of it. I actually serendipitously found a newspaper clipping, I think it was from a column by Colby Kosh, where he's talking about the part in the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation. And the part that I clipped out, the paragraph, is led into temptation. Some Protestant reformers more or less grasped the nettle and said, yes, God does lead some people into temptation. Deal with it, you miserable weaklings. Calvin, for one, came fairly close to this view. Butcher ran it into the end zone and spiked it. So, yeah, I think it looks like that to people who are easily tempted. And remember that the Lord's Prayer is, the YHWH is prayer. So it's, I think, an accusation directed at God. Lead us not into temptation. You're leading me into temptation, and then I have to suffer the consequences of it. I don't think that's the case. I think when our program is running and is running us, you're always on the border between the two. You're always drawing towards yourself negative options that would take you down from where you are, and you're always drawing towards yourself positive options that will take you up from where you are. And the choice is yours. This is one of the things that goes into the program. So that's how free will works. Is you've already made all of your decisions in the fourth dimension, and how you end up is how you end up. Like whenever Dave Sim is going to die, 2038 or whatever it is, I will have made all of the decisions I've made from 1956 to the end of 2020, and I know what all of those are, and I know where they've led me. I know where I was going around in circles, and I know where I think I was making progress. I have 17 more years, or however many years, of decisions to make. I've already made all of them, and I end up where I end up. God willing, I will be one of the 2 out of 100 neutrinos. If I'm not, well, it's going to be because I made wrong choices. Because everything got slowed down in physical incarnation, so I have the illusion of living my life sequentially when actually all of my life has been lived simultaneously, as already happened. So if you apply that to Cerebus, yes, Dave Sim his programming was already written when Mary and Ken Sim had sex in August of 1955, and their 46 chromosomes together went into making up this individual who then made these choices from 1956 to 2020. The biggest one so far deciding, no, I'm not an atheist, I'm a monotheist in 1996. So that was already carved in stone. Consequently, everything that Cerebus did, that I wrote Cerebus doing, was carved in stone in the same way. Cerebus is an atheist and then ultimately becomes a monotheist. Not a very good monotheist, but he does become a monotheist. Dave Sim was an atheist and became a monotheist, and hopes that he's doing at least better than Cerebus did. So that would be the answer to Jeff. Was Cerebus's life and adventures and misadventures a case of free will, or was it God's or Tarim's or your plan? It's like, well, the free will enacted itself within that plan. God designed a structure that makes it look like he's leading us into temptation if you allow yourself to be tempted. If you tempt yourself, then it looks like, okay, the deck is stacked here. I can never win at this game. It's like, well, you can, but you just have to apply yourself. You just have to make better choices. And the more better choices you make, the more you understand what a better choice is, and you stop making bad choices, is my view of how the whole thing works.
Right. I mean, well, it's one of those. Yeah, my 20 years ago now, because it was one of those. I keep thinking I'm in my 20s. No, you're 41, Matt. But my friend became a pastor, a Lutheran pastor. It was when he was 9 years old. He told his parents that was his goal, was to become a pastor, and he lost his way. But then I met him, and he went into the seminary. And one of the problems he had as a kid was, if God gives us free will, but God knows everything, how is it free will? And they explained it to him, and it never made sense to him. And I'm going, okay, so how'd you square that circle type thing? And he went, well, and then he explained it to me one time, and it made sense, but I've forgotten half of it. So I always, it's one of those, it's like, when people bring up, well, free will versus determinate, well, I look at it as if from God's perspective, there's one possibility. It's a straight line, beginning, end. But we're not God. We don't have that perspective. So for us, there's an infinite possibilities. We could go here, we could go there. Well, God, and from God's point of view, it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to end up at the end. It's the difference between standing in a maze and being the guy standing over the maze, looking at the maze. We all know. For all we know, we can go left or right, but from above, it's, well, if you go left, you're not going to end well. That's where you're going to end up in the hospital going, what happened? Well, you went left when you should have went right.
Yes. I mean, William Seabrook, who is definitely way over on the other team, Aleister Crowley kind of stuff, always... He picked up from a voodoo priestess in Haiti the concept of fan-shaped destiny, that your destiny widens out the further along that you go, because there's always more options the further along you go in your life. And it's like, no, I think that's completely unhelpful and wrong-headed. It's far more a case of the further along you go, the fewer options you have, the better off you are having fewer options. I think that's one of the things that modern society teaches us is the more options that you have, the more difficult life is. When I'm getting my hair cut in town, they have television screens at each of the stations where you're getting your hair cut, so you can watch whatever they're watching. And when they bring up the menu of, here's all the things that you can pick from that you've got stored in this system, all of these movies, all of these half-hour comedies, and it's like I'm going, my brain would melt. I mean, I got off of this train back when there was only 70 television channels to pick from. How can you possibly pick what it is that you're going to watch tonight? And I read people saying that they're going through that they finish work, it's 8 o'clock at night, let's sit down and watch something on Netflix, and then they spend an hour and a half scrolling through all of the possibilities and trying to figure out what they want to watch, and not really getting close to anything that they want to watch. And it's like, well, there you go. That's what you're experiencing, what you're enacting, is running your programming and trying to tell yourself, yeah, you don't want to do this. And any context that you're in as a human being, where you just have this bottomless supply of choices, it can't lead you anywhere good, because there's just too many choices, which is why I got it down to scripture. If I've got 2.5 hours, read John's Gospel aloud, because that's the best thing that I can possibly find to subject myself to or bombard myself with. I mean, modern society is about what are you bombarding yourself with? Because you can't just participate in something. You can't just, I think I would enjoy this. I think I would, I would like to read this magazine article. It's, no, you're going to turn on the giant television and then you're going to bombard yourself with options. You're just hurting yourself. I mean, bombard is not something that you want to do to yourself. It's like, oh yes, it is. That's why I've got Disney Plus and I got Netflix and I got this and I got this other thing. I like to have lots of entertainment options. And it's like, well, okay. It's as long as you understand that you're bombarding yourself. And Dave Sim will now flinch completely away from that because, again, that's just a Dave Sim thing. I have absolutely zero experience with that whole thing except for when I'm at the barber and I'm going, like I say, my brain would melt. How could you possibly look at all of these different little squares on the screen and go, which one am I going to click on? And then watch it all the way through.
The problem I have is the situation is you're at the barber. How long does it take to get a haircut?
Well, this is the thing. It's like I only see part of whatever it is. And it's like I have no idea what this is. And I'm not curious enough about it to say, what are we watching here? It's like I watched part of Mission Impossible. The one where Tom Cruise is climbing up the Dubai Tower, whatever it is. And I didn't know that was what I was watching until I read a newspaper article in the National Post in the Arts and Life section tearing Tom Cruise a new one for, like, they really don't like Tom Cruise. And they really need to do something about Tom Cruise because he's not with Nicole Kidman anymore, and he's not doing what Nicole Kidman tells him to do. So consequently, he's a very, very evil person. But he's also, doing all of his own stunts in this thing. So it wasn't until there was this giant picture to go with this "Here's What's Wrong with Tom Cruise" article, and I went, "Oh, that's what I was watching that time that I got my haircut."
My grandpa had a series of micro strokes, and we figured this out after he died, or right before he died. That this is because his memory was going, and okay, he's getting older, but it was really specific. Like his memory, his short term memory was almost non-existent. And my mom was visiting one day, and it was, "Hey, Dad, what are you watching?" He was watching some movie from the 40s with Cary Grant that he'd probably seen 20 times. But it was, and it was on TV, and he was watching it. And he flat out admitted to her, "I have no idea, but it's got Cary Grant in it." And, it was heartbreaking for my mom because on his bad days, he'd start watching a movie that he had seen before, and 20 minutes in, he would forget what movie it was and not know. And, well, it seems to be interesting, so he would keep watching it. And it's just like, that's one of the things I'm afraid of is as I get older, if my mind starts to go where, I'm watching Star Wars and I don't know what this is, but it's got really cool explosions. I mean,
that's where we're all going is the thing. It's like, I usually hope that there's a lineup at the barbers so I can watch some of whatever it is and just have my toe in the water of the 21st century. That's about all that I want to have. I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, whoever that new director is that everybody hates.
Michael Bay.
Right. And I had no idea what it was, but it's like, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it's like, part of me wants to say, I did a crossover comic with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Just making conversation with everybody who's waiting to get their haircut and watching this. And it's like, I just know they'd be going, "Yeah, sure you did, Grandpa." Like, whatever.
Well, the funny part about that is for Turtles 100, there's for Spider-Man 100, Spider-Man 700, there's a variant cover where it's a sideways skyline and Spidey swinging across it, and the buildings, they listed the names of all the people that have contributed to Spider-Man over the 700 issues.
Right.
Todd did a parody of it for Spawn 312, and your name is in the skyline. So I got you 2 copies.
I appreciate that. I would never have found out about it.
Well, no. Then I found out, looking online, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 100 did the 4 turtles going across the skyline, and it has all the people that contributed to the turtles. The problem is I can't find a good enough copy of the image to make sure you and Gerhard are listed, because there's more people on the Turtles cover than there are on the Spawn cover.
How about that? We got more people on our skyline than you've got on your skyline.
Well, and then in Turtles 113, the artist shared a panel, an in-progress panel on Twitter, where it's somebody in the temple from issue 8 from the beginning when the girl steals the Sands of Time and starts everything. And I'm going, wait, so they bringing Cerebus back for another issue?
They're more than welcome to. I don't know if I even mentioned the fact that I talked to Kurt Nelson at IDW. Did I mention?
You may have, but I'm not. It's not striking any bells in the back of my head.
Okay, and he's the foreign licensing guy for IDW. Does that ring a bell?
Vaguely,
No?
I think this might have been in a weekly update. But
Okay.
go ahead, because if I forgot,
Okay.
that means Margaret didn't.
The thing was he was contacting me to say, are we allowed to license Turtles number 8 to our foreign accounts? And I said, well, the deal that I struck with Ted Adams when he was there was anytime that you do a new printing of that volume of the Turtles, I get $500. And just an arbitrary amount, just to make things as easy as possible. I got one check for $500, and I never got one after that. And I said to him, I'll tell you what, whoever is running IDW right now, it's not Chris Ryle, he stepped down a while ago, I guess. I said, I'll tell you what, you give me back Strange Death of Alex Raymond. IDW has no stake in Strange Death of Alex Raymond. And as long as you have the Viacom account for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, then you are welcome to license Turtles number 8 anywhere that you want to. And we have a verbal handshake on that. He said it'll take a while for me to get the paperwork on this, and I said I'm not really concerned about the paperwork. If you can speak for IDW saying we have no problem giving you back Strange Death of Alex Raymond, you don't owe us anything on that, and you'll let us license the Turtles wherever we want to license Turtles number 8. I said that deal only lasts as long as you have the contract with Viacom. If you lose the contract, then Viacom would have to contact me directly, and we'd work something out between us with whoever would have the Turtles comic book account after that. So that's where that stands, and I'm very pleased with it. And he said, anything that we can do to help you with Strange Death of Alex Raymond, let us know. And anything, and I said, I'll be happy to do anything that you want me to do to help you with Turtles number 8. And he said they would be happy to help me with Turtles number 8 when we get around to doing a Kickstarter with that through Waverly Press.
Did you know about the cartoon, right?
Cerebus in the cartoon?
This is kind of funny. It's not the most recent cartoon, and it might not even be the past 2 versions of the cartoon, but one of the versions of the cartoon, they adapted the story from Turtles 8, without Cerebus at all. But when the turtles travel through time and they land in the past, there's an aardvark, like an actual African aardvark, on the screen right when they land. And it's a gray aardvark that trudges off the screen to the right.
Well, how about that?
So they acknowledge there was an aardvark involved. They just don't use the right aardvark. I mean, it was one of those. I heard about it. And I'm going, no, that's not real. That's not real. And then I saw the clip and I'm like,